They say every legend has a turning point, a moment of shame so sharp, so unforgettable, that it carves into the soul and becomes the foundation of greatness. For Giannis Antetokounmpo, that moment wasn't a finals loss or a missed shot in a crucial game. It wasn't even in the NBA. It happened in a gym most fans have never heard of, in a city no camera crews had bothered to visit, during a summer no one thought would matter. It happened because of a man named Darius the Eagle Jennings. The year was 2013. Giannis had just entered the league, a lanky 18-year-old from Greece who barely spoke English, with limbs too long for his frame and a game that was more potential than polish. The Bucks had drafted him with hope in their eyes and skepticism on their lips. He was raw, awkward, and charmingly naive, but deep inside, Giannis had fire, and like all young fire, it needed wind or humiliation to truly ignite. That summer after his rookie season, Giannis flew to Los Angeles to train, not with coaches or personal trainers, but to join the famed underground runs, the unsanctioned, untelevised battles that took place in a dusty gym behind an old boxing hall in Compton. NBA pros, street legends, overseas stars, and retired killers all came to test their mettle in these mythic sessions. There were no referees, no agents, no cameras, just sweat, pride, and truth. That's where Giannis met Darius. Darius Jennings was not a name most fans knew. He had gone undrafted in 2007, bounced around G League teams, lit up summer leagues, dominated pro-am circuits, and developed a reputation as a ruthless, no-nonsense baller who could humble anyone. People called him the Eagle not because he flew, but because he saw everything, weaknesses, habits, fear, and exploited it. At 6'5", built like a linebacker with the footwork of a ballet dancer, he wasn't in the league not because he wasn't good enough, but because he didn't care about politics. He played for pride, not paychecks. When Giannis stepped onto the court that day, he was hungry to prove himself. Darius was hungry to feed, and he fed on rookies. It started with a simple switch. Giannis picked up Darius at the top of the key. No one paid attention, just another possession. But in seconds, the entire gym fell silent. Darius went to work. He hit Giannis with a hesitation, crossover, spin, so fast and fluid it looked choreographed. Giannis stumbled. Then came the step back. Giannis lunged, then the pump fake. Giannis bit. And finally, the one thing no one forgets. Darius palmed the ball, stared Giannis down and whispered, "Too easy." He rose and buried the jumper in Giannis's face. Nothing but net. Giannis fell to the floor, arms splayed, legs tangled. The gym erupted. It wasn't just the move, it was the message. Darius didn't just break Giannis physically, he broke him mentally, and he did it again and again. That day, Darius dropped 36 in a game to 40, most of them with Giannis guarding him. He clowned him, taunted him, talked to him like he wasn't even there. At one point he shouted, "Y'all hyping this kid, this the future," and people laughed. Giannis didn't fight back, he didn't storm out, he didn't cry, but he never forgot. Years later, when asked about his welcome to reality moment, Giannis wouldn't mention a superstar or a playoff loss. He would say, "There was a man once in LA. He cooked me, embarrassed me. I couldn't sleep for a week." The thing is, no one knew who that man was. The footage didn't exist, it was street legend. Some thought Giannis made it up, a humbling story to sell the grind. But Giannis knew. He never spoke Darius's name in public, not out of disrespect, but because some ghosts are too real to resurrect. Fast forward to 2023. Giannis had become everything they said he couldn't be. MVP, champion, finals MVP, defensive player of the year, face of the league, role model, immigrant hero. He was no longer the skinny kid in Milwaukee. He was a god in sneakers. But deep down, he still carried the scar. And scars, even when healed, itch when the past walks back through the door. That summer, a viral video started circulating. A blurry clip from an LA run. Same gym, same court. A player hitting a ridiculous step-back three, spinning away and yelling, "Still too easy." The face wasn't clear, but the voice was unmistakable. Giannis froze when he saw it. Darius was back. No one knew where he'd gone. Some said he played in China. Others claimed he quit basketball entirely to coach in the Bronx. But there he was. Older, thicker, still sharp as hell. Same attitude, same fire. And now the world had noticed. The video went viral. "Who is this man?" headlines asked. Analysts tried to find his name. Hardcore hoopers knew instantly. The forums lit up. "That's Darius the Eagle Jennings. He's a killer." Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all swarmed with clips, rumors, and debates. And then the unthinkable happened. Darius challenged Giannis, not with a tweet, not with a press conference, but with a quiet statement, posted on an old Instagram account untouched since 2015. Just 2 lines. "I'm still here. You ready yet, kid?" The world erupted. Was it a stunt, a challenge, a joke? Giannis said nothing. For days, reporters asked. He smiled and shook his head. No comment. But behind the scenes, something shifted. That week, Giannis flew to LA, unannounced, no press. Just his trainer, his shoes, and a quiet request. Find him. The story was no longer about a superstar preparing for another title run. It was about something deeper. A man chasing a ghost. A ghost who once humiliated him so thoroughly that it lit a fire under a career that would inspire millions. And now, that ghost had returned. The private gym on Florence Avenue didn't look like a battleground. Faded walls, warped floorboards, a scoreboard that hadn't lit up in years. But on that humid July afternoon, it became the epicenter of a basketball earthquake. Word traveled fast. Giannis was in LA, not for endorsements, not for workouts, but for something unspoken, something only a few truly understood. Those who had been there a decade before knew the weight of what was coming. They whispered one name, Jennings. Darius hadn't posted since the message. He hadn't granted interviews, hadn't tweeted, hadn't answered texts. But everyone knew he would show. He didn't chase attention. He didn't need to. His legend lived in gym echoes and silent nods from hoopers who'd tasted his wrath. And now the world had finally caught up to the story Giannis had buried under trophies. They met on a Tuesday. No cameras, no ESPN crew. Just a handful of those who had the right to be there. Ex-pros, trainers, lifers, and a few trusted eyes. Phones were taken at the door, not by force but by respect. This wasn't for the world. Not yet. This was for them. Giannis stepped onto the court first. He wore no Bucks gear, just black shorts, a faded tee, and the expression of a man returning to the scene of a crime he never spoke about. His frame had changed, stronger, thicker, refined, but the eyes, they carried something ancient now. Not revenge, not fear, but remembrance. He didn't warm up. He stretched, nodded to a few familiar faces, and waited. Darius entered 15 minutes later, as if by design. He looked older, more grey in the beard, a slight limp in the left knee, but none of it dulled the weight of his presence. He wore the same battered sneakers from 10 years ago, same scowl, same rhythm in his walk. When their eyes met, there was no handshake, no greeting, just a shared silence that said, "It's time." No words were exchanged before the first check ball, no introductions, just Darius holding the ball out, palm open, eyes locked. Giannis slapped it. Game on. It wasn't for points. It wasn't for a win. It was for something else, a reckoning. What followed didn't look like a scrimmage. It looked like history exhaling. Darius struck first, a jab step, quick pull-up. Net. Giannis nodded. He backed off on the next play, daring Darius to shoot again. He did. Net. The gym murmured. Giannis switched tactics, pressed up, used his length. This time, Darius drove hard left, absorbed the contact, spun off Giannis's chest, and finished off glass. 3-0. It was 2013 all over again. But then something shifted. Giannis, no longer the confused teen from Athens, responded. First, he locked in on defense. His footwork, once raw and eager, was now surgical. He anticipated Darius's spin, met him mid-air, and swatted the ball out of bounds. Next possession, Giannis caught it at the top, surveyed one dribble, shoulder dip, and exploded into a two-handed dunk that rattled the whole gym. No celebration, just focus. They went back and forth. Darius with his relentless mid-range mastery, Giannis with his relentless rim pressure. Both tested each other's stamina, will, memory. At one point, Giannis caught Darius with a Euro step that looked like ballet. He finished through contact. That was new. Darius raised an eyebrow. "So you have been working," he muttered. Giannis didn't respond. He didn't need to. The game stretched over an hour. They played to exhaustion. Neither backed down. The crowd stayed silent, reverent, watching two titans from different worlds collide in an arena built on respect. But something else was brewing, something unspoken, a shift in energy. Around the halfway point, Giannis stole the ball on a lazy crossover, and instead of dunking, he stepped back. He mimicked Darius's signature move. Hesitation, spin, pause, step back three. It wasn't clean, but it dropped. The gym gasped. Darius laughed. The first sound of joy all afternoon. "So you remembered," he said. That's when people began to realize this wasn't revenge, this was recognition. This was Giannis saying, "You made me." As the game wore on, Darius slowed. Age took its tax. His legs didn't fire like they used to, but his mind stayed razor sharp. He baited Giannis into fouls, faked screens that never came, found space in slivers where others saw none. Giannis, though, wasn't playing just to win. He was playing to measure, to see if the nightmare still held power. By the end, they were drenched, breathing heavy. Every cut, every jab, a testament to years of obsession. The game didn't end on a buzzer or a final shot. It faded into a mutual halt, a shared nod, and the silence of men who had said everything without speaking. Giannis walked over and extended his hand. Darius looked at it, then clasped it with both of his. "That's what I wanted to see," Darius said quietly. Giannis didn't smile. He simply whispered back, "Thank you." It could have ended there. And for most, it did. Those who were in that gym would carry the memory like a sacred right. They wouldn't leak footage, not because they were told not to, but because they knew better. This wasn't for likes, it was for legacy. But word still got out. Not in footage, but in stories. Players started talking. Trainers told friends. Journalists heard whispers. The legend that had been born a decade earlier had just received its sequel, and now the world wanted to know. Clips began surfacing, blurry, unauthorized, shaky. Just glimpses. A silhouette of Giannis hitting a fade. A voice yelling, "Still too easy." A frame of Darius limping off, nodding. Nothing concrete, but enough to fuel the storm. Social media lost its mind. Giannis versus the Ghost. The rematch no one knew they needed. The man who made the MVP. Darius Jennings, the secret GOAT. Podcasts debated the ethics. Should we celebrate this hidden rivalry? Should Darius have been in the league all along? What does it mean that a nobody cooked the most dominant player in the world twice? But the biggest shock came from Giannis himself. 3 days after the game, Giannis posted a photo. No caption, just a picture of two hands shaking, one taped up, calloused, blackened by time, the other larger, younger, marked by greatness. The internet exploded. And then finally, Giannis broke his silence with an interview on a low-profile Greek podcast, far from the lights of ESPN or TNT. When asked about Darius Jennings, he paused, then said, "There's always one person who wakes you up. For me, it wasn't Kobe. It wasn't LeBron. It was a man in LA who showed me I wasn't ready. That pain changed my life. I didn't thank him then, so I thank him now." He didn't name Darius. He didn't need to. From that moment on, the story evolved. It wasn't about humiliation anymore. It was about ignition, a tale of how greatness is sometimes sparked not by praise, but by public defeat. About how legends are built not on courts of gold, but in forgotten gyms filled with men no one talks about. Darius vanished again. No one saw him after that week. He left LA, shut down the Instagram, declined every interview. Some say he moved to Portugal. Others swear they saw him coaching AAU in Chicago. But wherever he went, he carried something different now. Respect. Not because he beat Giannis, but because he helped build him. It's rare in modern sports for a story to live outside the box score. Even rarer when that story involves no televised event, no championship ring, no trophy hoisted under confetti. But the tale of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Darius the Eagle Jennings refused to fade. It lingered, not in highlight reels, but in memory, myth, and the quiet moments between plays when greatness whispers its origin. In the weeks following their silent clash in Los Angeles, a strange calm surrounded Giannis. He wasn't more aggressive or more vocal or more public. If anything, he became quieter, but in that quiet was a sharpened edge. He returned to Milwaukee with a fire in his workouts that trainers hadn't seen in years. Not the fire of a player trying to prove something to the world, but the fire of a man who had finally faced the ghost that had lived inside him since he was 18. The Bucks' preseason began like any other. Media day, interviews, photo ops. Giannis was asked the usual questions: title aspirations, health, MVP chances. But woven between the lines was one recurring curiosity. Was it true? Did he really face off against the man who'd once humiliated him? Did he really seek him out? Did they really play? Giannis never confirmed it directly. Instead, he offered cryptic responses. "There are things that don't need cameras to be real," he said in one press scrum. "Some stories belong to the gym, not the timeline," he said in another. But it wasn't just what he said. It was what others started saying. Players began to reference the Eagle in interviews, not mockingly but reverently. One rookie called him the scariest guy I've never seen play. A G-League coach mentioned him as the type of guy you warn your team about when the lights are off and pride's on the line. Even veterans like DeMar DeRozan and Patrick Beverley hinted at having seen Darius in action years ago, each with a knowing glance that said more than words. Slowly, Darius Jennings became something else, a symbol, not of missed opportunity, but of hidden greatness. ESPN ran a special, The Shadow Game: The Men Who Shape Stars Behind the Scenes. It featured old footage of summer runs, whispers of Darius's exploits, interviews with nameless hoopers who all said the same thing. He could have been league, he chose the street. But still, no full footage of the Giannis game ever surfaced. Some claimed to have it, others promised leaks. But in the end, no video emerged. Just fragments, shadows, echoes, and maybe that was the point. The world, desperate for closure, turned to Giannis again. This time he delivered. In November, on the night of a nationally televised game against Boston, Giannis wore a pair of custom sneakers. All black, save for a single gold eagle feather etched near the heel. No logos, no promo, just a silent tribute. After the game, one in which he dropped 42 points, 15 rebounds and 6 blocks, he was asked about the shoes. He paused. Then, for the first time, he said the name out loud. "Darius Jennings taught me the value of pain. Some people coach you with love, some coach you with humiliation. He coached me without saying a word. I wouldn't be who I am without that day in Compton, and I wouldn't be who I am without seeing him again." The quote spread like wildfire. Searches for Darius Jennings spiked. Fans begged for interviews. Film crews looked for him in LA, New York, even Europe. But he was gone. Not hiding, just gone. And the silence made the story stronger. Meanwhile, Giannis began doing something else, something unexpected. He launched a summer program, the Eagle's Nest, a private invite-only camp for young players, mostly international, mostly under the radar. No press, no sponsors, just hoop. The only rule, no phones. It wasn't about drills, it was about truth. The camp became known for its brutal honesty. Giannis himself ran most of the sessions. And he told every kid the same thing. "You're not as good as you think, and that's okay, neither was I." He'd recount the day Darius cooked him, the way the gym laughed, the way he felt like he didn't belong, and how that feeling changed his life. "Everybody needs their eagle," he'd say. The message struck a chord, not just with the kids, but with fans, coaches, analysts. It sparked a conversation long overdue. How many Darius Jenningses are out there? How many hidden giants never make the league because they don't play politics or don't chase fame? How many legends exist in quiet gyms, building greatness in others without ever getting credit? The story hit deeper in international circles. In Greece, Giannis's tribute became front-page news. In Serbia, Spain, Nigeria, everywhere players fight through obscurity, Darius Jennings became a folk hero. He became a mirror, proof that greatness isn't always on stage. Sometimes it's in the shadows shaping stars. But perhaps the most shocking moment came in February of the following year, during All-Star Weekend. In a surprise segment titled Legends Unseen, the NBA honored unsung contributors to the game, coaches, trainers, overseas scouts. At the end of the tribute, the lights dimmed. A hush fell over the arena, and on the screen in gold letters, a single name appeared: Darius the Eagle Jennings. For reminding us that greatness is not always televised. The crowd stood. Giannis, sitting courtside, clapped slowly, eyes locked on the screen. Then, to everyone's astonishment, the camera cut to a seat in the nosebleeds, row 317. A man stood, grey hoodie, faded jeans, calloused hands, and for the first time, the world saw the face behind the myth. Darius Jennings nodded once. No smile, no speech, just a man acknowledging a moment. And in that moment, the world shifted again, because now the myth was real. After that night, Giannis spoke one final time on the matter in a Players' Tribune piece titled "The Man Who Made Me Miss Sleep." In it, he detailed the original run, the humiliation, the journey, and the rematch. But more than that, he wrote about the power of being broken before you're built. Sometimes, he wrote, you need to be destroyed in private so you can rise in public. That's what Darius gave me. Not just defeat, but direction. The piece went viral. Coaches printed it for their teams. Parents shared it with their kids. It became a mantra: find your eagle. Darius, for his part, never engaged. He never gave a full interview, never cashed in. He turned down endorsement offers, book deals, even a Netflix docuseries. He said no to it all. Not out of arrogance, but clarity. I didn't build Giannis to be known, he told one journalist who caught up with him briefly in Harlem. I did it because the game needs truth. Those were his last public words. In the years that followed, Giannis continued to reference Darius subtly, through gestures, shoes, or quotes. He named a drill Jennings. He taught his kids about him. And every summer, the eagle's nest grew, quietly, powerfully. Because some stories don't end with a buzzer. Some stories echo. In playgrounds where kids try step-backs with a whisper of "still too easy." In gyms where young stars get broken for the first time and rebuilt stronger. In legends passed down not through stats, but through silence. The man who once humiliated Giannis did more than bruise his pride. He shaped his path. And when he reappeared, the world expected a fight. But instead, they witnessed something greater. They witnessed gratitude.